And the idea was that we wanted to speak to successful career women. There are so many women who are trying to navigate their careers. And apart from just skill set, there are so many other barriers which come in the way. And many times you're kind of lost, because sometimes I can tell you personally, when I was young and trying to navigate my career, I would always look for, these senior women somehow, I would say, okay, maybe a woman would be able to relate a little better to my journey or what I'm going through, because there are so many other things which come in the way, which is why we launched this series where we speak to successful women, we pick up interesting different topics, and we want to hear your story. We want to hear what helped you what are the skills and what are the tools that you use to navigate. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too.
Today. So for everybody else, just wanted to share the topic today is something very exciting. It says, make people shine. And when I read the topic myself, right, like when I saw these words, it's such a beautiful concept, because many times when we are pursuing our career, I think we get so wrapped up in our own goals, in our own skill set. We believe, me alone and I'm the only one which is going to make everything happen. And I think that's the same thing which a lot of women carry back at home as well, not just at work. I see this as a mother as well, that you somehow tend to believe that everything you do is your job, basically. And you're not talking about the people around you. And today we're going to talk about that, about the potential of the people around us, how they can help us shine, and vice versa. And we have someone who knows this way, way better than I could even imagine ever. Manisha Balachandran is a veteran HR professional. So not just started her career from leading small units to getting into leading specific divisions to managing organizational HR, and now you're a thought leader in this space. You're working with so many small, medium-sized businesses, helping them navigate through the HR piece, which is such an important function, without which I think a lot of organizations would really fall apart. It's about culture, it's about people working together, etc. So I'm looking to hear more from you, Manisha. Tell everybody more about the real Manisha outside of what we see about you on professional platforms. And also how has your journey been? What have been the key moments in this journey? So as we go along, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Neha, and thank you everyone who are here. I'm really looking forward to a very interesting dialogue with you. And I, like Neha, like you said, make people shine. That was so, it was really very inspirational for me as well. Okay, when I read that, I thought this is really a good platform. Okay, so I'm happy to be here. I'll just quickly talk a little about my career journey, and and then I know that there will be some questions, so I'll not give you a long story, just quickly. So I started my career with Nestle, where I got the first hand exposure of working in manufacturing and all of these. My first union exposure was there. And so it was a good one. I moved to another company called Marico, and all of these moments of mine have been really in parallel to my personal life journey. Okay, so when I moved from Nestle to Marico, it was really because I wanted to be closer to parents. So I had to be around them at that time. It was required. So I did that. And then when I moved from Marico to, I moved to a company called Monsanto. It's to ag space. And that was really when I had my child. And I wanted a company which was, a little bit more flexible. The number of hours was not less, but there was flexibility. Okay. So that was, when I made that switch. And when my son was big enough to take care of himself, I moved to a company where, I had a much larger portfolio. So I had like 17,000 people in the organization. I was leading HR, and I had 22 unions. Okay, so it was a time when I could handle all that, right? So So I think this is how my journey has been. It's been very much in parallel to how my personal life has also moved. Okay, and currently, after doing a lot of rigorous work for 16 years, I said I have to start working on something on my own, and now is when I have started doing that. So yeah, so it's been a good journey. I've been lucky that I've been able to decide and choose a career of my choice, and make those switches when I have wanted to make them. Yeah, so that's how it's been for me, Neha.
So, Manisha, one of the things which is very interesting is that you kind of kept pacing, apart from the fact that I think beautifully how all your organizations are linked to a life goal and a personal goal. But I think you've also kind of managed to keep the pace, pacing it up and down as per what you require. And another thing which stands out is that you've pretty much stuck to the one area of specialization. I think that. So both these things I wanted to know a little bit more about. How did you manage to balance this out? Was this a conscious call every time you were thinking, and then you would take a pause, you would seek out something new? How are you going about this, these switches along with your personal journey?
Yeah. So, see, it's always been a conscious decision, Neha. So it's not been a chance. So, I can tell you this. So when I was at Nestle, I did know I had to move to Mumbai to be around my parents. So, and then, there were these organizations, and, Marico was my dream organization at that time. So I really, that's another story, possibly for another question. But I did put an effort to get into that organization. Okay. Similarly, when I came out of when I had my child, I joined back, and I realized I couldn't do the same things that I used to do before my
Yes.
child was born.
Yes.
So then when I took the decision to join the next organization, I had a choice that I could make. So I had a startup, with a large organization, a part of their, they were starting up on a certain, EV and all of that. So I had that organization to lead, or I had this. So I have been very conscious. So, nothing, I've never left it on chance. I waited for the right opportunity. If I'm not getting it, I've tried to reach out and create that opportunity for myself, either through a bit of networking, through a bit of this, a bit of that. But, I've really tried to make that happen actually.
You've used my favorite word, so I will not be able to not talk about it. Networking. Okay. I am very curious to know a little bit about um, how you built networks which support you. And also, very early on, I heard this word called sponsors. So someone told me that, more important than having mentors after a point in your career is to have sponsors for your career. Manisha, are you with me?
I think her internet
I
is,
think we
yeah, we'll just
should
wait for
wait
her
for
to
her to
join
get
in.
back.
Yeah. Yes. Uh, yeah, I think she's getting back.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong today. This never has an issue. But what I'll
Doesn't
do
matter.
is, I'll, alternately I'll log into another on my phone. Possibly that will help us stay connected. Yeah. So sorry. So Neha, yeah, I don't know if you could hear me. So I was just talking about, creating your own opportunities. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So I was saying, Manisha, I caught on to the word network,
Yeah.
when you use it, because that's it's a word which I'm always very curious to know and learn more about. So when
Yeah.
I was much younger, of course, some very senior person in my career, he mentioned this word called sponsors. Actually, he told me that you are always seeking mentors, but I think after a point you need sponsors in your career, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. building sponsors, building allies, building mentors. What does this mean for women who are navigating their career? How important is that? Today we are on a network.
I think she's joining from some
What the
other
network is that?
handset. She has already joined
Okay.
from another
There.
handset. Yeah.
Maybe you can shift
Remove
the.
the pin. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I think it's going to be a bad day in terms of my video. Is this okay? We'll have to just.
Fine.
It's
I'll try
absolutely
to.
fine, I think. I mean, it's a smaller frame, but yes, you are audible and you
Yeah,
are clear.
yeah. So because since morning there's been some issue actually. Let me just yeah remove this. All right. Yeah. Sorry, you were saying about sponsors, Neha.
Yes, the sponsors and allies and
Yeah.
network. I
Yeah.
wanted to learn how, one,
Yeah.
how important it is from your
Yeah.
perspective.
Hmm.
And second, in your career, how have you kind of been able to do this? Were there any barriers which you had initially? How did
Hmm.
you overcome those? If there is a
Hmm.
story or an incident or just a
Hmm.
process, which you want to
Hmm.
share.
Yeah. So see, frankly, at that time, especially when I started off my career, you didn't think networking as networking. You just did what came naturally. But when I think back, you know, I have always made some allies. Okay, so and always had those connections in different what do you say, in different functions for different reasons. So. I think in every organization that I've been, I've had someone who's been a go-to person for me. Okay. So if it is a business, I have one person who I go and talk about business, understand business. If there is for finances and budgets, there will be one person who's an ally for me. So I think and I'm saying this, especially Neha, because one thing which I see in a lot of women, okay, is, and I'm saying this because we are a lot of women here, and I just thought I'll bring this up. Okay. But one thing which I always see is women are very uncomfortable if they don't have enough to give in a relationship, and that really makes them not do much networking. So मैं क्या दूंगी, if I go and network, what is it that I have to give that person? And one thing I think I have kept in for me is I really don't mind that I can't give. So I think that has kind of helped me because and possibly that's why also I don't mind someone coming and asking me something without having been in touch with me for years. So I think one of the things which I feel we don't do very well is that aspect. If I can't give, I don't take. That is something I think we should all not really necessarily stand by. Okay, so women do that quite a bit. Okay, so I think for me that's not been an issue. So for in every organization, I've had that one person in each team who I'm able to go to and get that work done. Okay, and those will be people I'll have my lunches with sometimes. I'll go and chat with, I'll ask them questions. Okay, so I think that has been helpful for me. And another thing is, initially in my career, also, I have had very some good bosses and some
Mhm.
very, not so good bosses, but they've been so bad that you had to be on top of things. So it's in the end, it just helped you. Okay, so anyway, just coming back to this, so you find allies and sometimes you have good bosses, but if you don't, it's really important that you reach out and you make sure that you have that network that helps you develop. And for me also, I still have that same network. I still do have some of those people who I still go to. Like one of my, I'll just give you an example. Okay, so one of my colleagues at Marico is still the person I go to for investment advice. Okay, that was my network at that time. I used to reach out to him about किस stock में invest करना है, आप क्या सोच रहे हो, you know, what is your, he used to be very good at real estate, तो कहाँ पे आपने invest किया, you know, that kind of a conversation. So, so you know, we need to know what our goal is, what is the area that we want to develop in, what is it that we want to, so, you know, so, and figure out who is that one person. And you know,
Any ways that you were going about identifying these people?
yeah, so
Or
see
was it
what,
just like
yeah,
how was this identification happening?
yeah, so really some of them, you know, can be a little obvious, because you know these people are the people who have that information. So
Hmm.
for example, see, for me, I have been in HR, and as HR, you know, one of the things that's important for HR to be successful is to know the business. Okay, if you're just doing people
Hmm.
without knowing what you're solving for, it becomes an issue, right? So really knowing business, being knowing your numbers. So you know, for me, it was always okay. So in sales, I need to speak to these people, this one person. You know, so you identify basis what you need to develop. So if I need to
Hmm.
develop my
Okay.
understanding on business, then I know whom to reach out to. If I need, you know, I have always needed more budgets. Okay, so I know who is that one person whom I can speak to in the finance team. So you really need to know what you want. And then you automatically have those people. And then, you know, just go and talk to them, have coffee chats with them. And in the end, eventually, you know, when you have lunches and coffee chats, they become a part of your network. So I would say really knowing what you need and then therefore going and identifying.
Awesome. So I think giving that gives a very interesting direction that first start from what you want and then figure a way around who can provide you with that answer.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
sooner than later, I think networks also grow, right? You go to one and then you talk to them about something, they lead you on to something. It's like
yeah,
friends ke friends ban jate hain, and then it becomes this whole without realizing you've built an entire ecosystem actually around you. Awesome. I'm
yeah,
passing on to Shrestha for the next question. She had a question which she wanted to ask.
yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so I think Manisha, you said a very important thing in the last conversation around networking, that sometimes there are inhibitions in our own mind which
Mm,
actually pulls us back from going onward and upward. For
mm,
example, as you said, mind barrier around the perfection perception, that if I'm not being able to give 100% to the
mm,
person I'm meeting, I
mm.
might not go and meet as well. So,
Yeah, yeah.
how was it for you to combat all these kinds of mind barriers that actually
Mm,
pulls you back to,
mm.
achieve something higher and greater? So I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah, no, thanks. So, okay, I'll talk about myself only, and then, you know, possibly just reflecting. And some things, you know, some of my reflections are also coming because I've worked a lot in the inclusion and diversity space. Okay, so probably worked a little closely with women in that space. But see, for me, you know, there were some barriers which I was able to identify, you know, I won't say early in my career, but, you know, really towards the last 1 decade, possibly. Okay, so one, you know, some things which really were affecting me was one, like you said, Shrestha, was that perfection barrier. Okay, so that was really, you know, needing to have the house perfect, work also perfect, you know, losing sleep. I really have lost sleep. Okay, so I have gone through a phase when I just couldn't sleep because I was thinking, oh, I need to finish these things at work and I need to make this at home. And I think being able to just come to terms with being imperfect, especially at home, has helped me. Okay, so yeah, it took me some time. It took me a lot of um, toil, really. Okay, I really lost sleep because of this whole perfection thing. But eventually, I was able to understand that the home need not be perfect, irrespective of what comments you hear from home. Okay, because that is something that happens, right? If things are not perfect, somebody will say something as if it's only your responsibility. Okay, but
True.
so I learned it a few years later that you could just say, okay, if it's a problem, why don't you do it? Okay, so just saying that. And another thing also, I just want to say this in this whole perfection thing, one thing which I realized that, I also used to feel a lot guilty about things and all that. So one of the things I did was, especially as when you become a mom, you feel guilty or you're not spending time with your child and things like that. Okay, so one of the things which I did, Shrestha, was, even early in my career, I invested in health. Though my friends would say that, how you're spending so much on help and all that. And I would say that, I will spend for the next 5 years. But my sixth year onwards, I may not need to spend,
Mm.
okay, that much because things will be settled. But, this is one thing which helped me. And, I was going crazy. So at that time, spend on help. That's a very important one. So, make sure that you have enough help and even if it means you're spending a large amount of your this thing, you are really investing for future, so don't bother. It'll at least make you feel less guilty about things. um Sorry, I have a lot of these mind barriers, Shrestha, so I'm going to really rattle on
Please
with them.
continue. I think we all can relate
Yeah,
so much.
I think we all can also add on, and everyone in the audience, if there are some mind barriers that you all have, please put it in the chat box.
Yeah,
So,
please.
not just
Yeah,
Manisha, we all can feel together in this whole thing. That
yeah,
I actually started jotting down my own mind barriers while you were talking as well. So,
yeah,
this is such an
yeah,
interesting thing, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one of the things, and I just want to again bring this out because, we are again a group of women, and I just want to call this out, is that one of the things which, I was not very good at was financial discipline. And that was
Mm.
again a barrier, okay, because a lot of us don't see ourselves doing stock trading and talking business and, all of those things. We somehow don't do that much. And while it was also not something natural to me, uh, I became very conscious about it, and especially after I had my son, I became very conscious about it, that I have to be financially independent and strong and things like that. So I think that is a barrier which, and I really appreciate what you are doing at Feminista. I know you are working towards this, and it's a very important one. And I think anybody, any of us, if I can do it, and because I was really so far away from all this, it was never in the family also to look at, stocks or equity or anything like that or investing. But if I can do this, I'm sure all of us can do this, have that financial discipline. Because in the end, after a few years, when you look back and you see, okay, you have been able to accumulate, it's going to be a very different kind of joy and a feeling of independence. Okay, so this is one thing which, again, that barrier which I had, and I had to work on getting that out. And today, I am always, so in the morning I have these few half an hour that I do go into my trading account. I check that I have some other investments. I do, look at, what's happening in those spaces. So yeah, so so these are some things I feel, being perfect, being nice, was one of my barriers. You're always having to smile. You're expected, and you end up doing all of that. So those were some barriers. It was uncomfortable for some others for some time, but and for me also to come out of these barriers, it was uncomfortable. But over a period of time, it's been a positive change. Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking about the financial independence, because I can't help but step in and appreciate that, applaud it, with all my heart, because literally almost I've dedicated my life's mission to do this. So I also want to just add one thing here, and we've heard this often. We've seen women go through this. That while a lot of women do not, there are barriers around money itself. So, I mean, I'm not going to talk about those. That if I talk too much about money, I'm greedy. Asking for a raise is greedy. I mean, there are n number of barriers in any case. And the unfortunate part, Manisha, is that even working women end up seeing their money many times as just kind of a pocket money to enjoy their life. And I don't want to, I don't want to say how, what happens after a few years is you start looking back, and somewhere there's a feeling that I spent so much time, but I have nothing really for myself. Somewhere there's a loss of respect and dignity for yourself. Somewhere there are fears that, oh my God, something goes wrong with my family. What am I going to do? And I often say this, that for men, investments and managing money is a lot to do with how much return I can generate. It's a return on investment. And for women, I call it a return on your life choices, because you can lead the kind of life that you want if you have learned to take financial control of your life. Otherwise, you are just sitting in the passenger seat, co-passenger seat. Many times you will just be watching and enjoying the ride, but you don't know where destiny is going to lead you. So thank you so much for talking about it. And I really appreciate you reaching out so many years ago to that colleague. Big thank you to that colleague as well, who got you started on this journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Manisha, speaking about, all those barriers, I mean, it is showing that how aware you were of the barriers inside ourselves, I mean, in our mind and also outside. I mean, you also spoke about different kinds of barriers. So, how was it creating your own space in this huge world, in the work sphere? What their challenges and difficulties that you faced? Because we were carrying our barriers and we matured at a certain point in our life, but then it was a journey, of course. So how was it creating your own space in this entire work sphere?
I'm sure it's the same for everyone, but when I look back, in the initial years, it was not easy at all. Okay, so the initial years were tough. You had to really work much, much harder than some other counterparts that you had. Okay, so, and of course, with time, then you know how to handle these things, and you know how to even digest some of the things. But yeah, so initially it was tough. And very recently, Shrestha, I was reading this article. I think it was in the Forbes magazine. Okay, so where they are discussing the confidence gap, the men and women confidence gap. And research says that women become as confident as men. Again, see, this is not a generic thing, right? A research is they would have a sample size, and they okay. So yeah, so it says that by mid 40s is when women become as confident as men. Okay, so I'm very close to that, or almost there. So yay. So anyway,
it's happened for you.
okay, but so the first few years for most women, and I don't know how others feel, we are really, there is a struggle. And one of the things which so it was not easy. There were always this And I was, in the FMCG space, so manufacturing. So, people from a lot of people who have been in the same space for a long time. A lot of people who would say, "Arey, when you were not born, I joined the company." That kind of conversations. So initially you face these things. Your inability to complete your sentences when you're in a meeting. These were some of the things I would face initially. And I remember even during hiring, there were times when someone said that, we really like you, but we're looking at a male for this role. Those kind of
Really?
things.
You would say
Yeah,
that?
those days it was allowed. It was allowed those days.
Actually,
Now
yeah,
it's
you're
not
right.
allowed.
Those days, lots of things are allowed. Are you married
Yeah,
or not
it was
married? Are you going
allowed.
to have kids or not have kids? All of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. When do you
Today,
dress?
even my daughter will tell me, Mama, how can you do this? How can you ask these questions?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. So, those days it was allowed also. But, so initial years, Shrestha were difficult. I should not deny. And it was always about make it till what is that? Fake it till you make it kind of a thing. So you just fake your confidence till you make it. Okay. So, so I remember really, always going prepared, thinking of what questions can come, just, sitting straight and taking a deep breath. And, it was like that. Okay. So, but of course, I was genuinely interested in my job. I worked really hard. I have always worked hard. So some of these things kind of helped me navigate. But I think, initial years are usually like that, because also, there is a whole thing on what a leader should be. And you know women usually try to also be like that, right?
Mm,
So yeah, so I think initial years were tough to make space, but you just have to stick to it, be resilient,
mm,
because that's a very important thing. Because see, in the end, you're not doing it for today, right? So you're doing it for whatever vision you have. So
mm,
having that in mind is very important, not giving up, and knowing that this is not about today, it's about where I want to be later. Okay,
mm,
so just stick to your guns is something which I don't give up, and just take your learnings. And to be honest, one thing which I always tell my any woman colleague is that make sure that you are always employable, because that helps you be able to speak up. The moment you know that you're employable, you will get another job, you are someone who's developing yourself, you will be able to speak up.
mm.
So work towards that very, very actively. Okay, to be employable, because that gives you a lot of confidence. So
How do you suggest somebody works towards it? Like, how would you recommend? What are the things they should they be doing? Like skill
yeah,
upskilling and what is it?
yeah. So one is, it's all, have a growth mindset. So
Mm,
know what you need, figure out what are the areas you're not really good at currently. And it's right now, things are, there's so much information. Okay, there are so many avenues you can take courses.
mm,
Those days, we used to read up. So I used to always subscribe to business magazines, just so that I have conversations that I can make with people. In a party, you will see women and men standing, and their conversations will be little different sometimes. They will be talking different things. So, because a lot of times men are speaking business, and you don't probably read that much, and you're
mm,
not able to contribute to that. So, reading about business, buying a few business magazines, knowing your own workspace,
mm,
going beyond just talking about travel and few other things. I think having basically that mindset that I want to grow, I want to be able to that's important. And there are ways you can develop. Sometimes it's a good idea to have mentors, identify those few people who will be that wind under your wing, right? So sometimes, and they need not be very senior people also. They can be just one level up, but people with some experience, people who are interested in other people, and there are people like that who are interested in another person, So this is what I would suggest, Neha. Really, upgrade yourself,
Hmm.
to be. And this is something, in one of my organizations, we used to always say that at the end of 1 year, you should be able to work on your CV and see if your CV's got better.
Hmm.
Okay, that makes you employable, right? So work on your CV and see what you have more to add. And if you don't have, then make sure the next year you have things to add.
I used to do this as one of the practices because one time in my appraisal, my boss, somebody asked me early, very early, so what were your achievements for this year? And I think I had walked in fairly unprepared, thinking that I had everything on top of I would remember it. And then when I walked out of that conversation, I was so unhappy, obviously, because I had not, you know. So what happens with bosses also, or people as senior people is also, they have recency bias, just like we all do. So they will
Hmm.
only remember what has happened recently, right? In your what
Yeah.
how they have seen you in the last say 2 months, 3 months, which is why everybody wants to achieve their targets in just
Yeah.
in the appraisal time, right? But one of the hacks
Absolutely.
which I started working on, Manisha, after that incident is that I had an Excel where I would just write down every month what was the 1 or 2 big things that I did.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it could be around achievement, like a tangible. So I was in sales, so it's easy. When you
Hmm.
move in non-sales, it's not so easy to track
Hmm.
what are the things you do. So how many proposals you've done, how many client projects you've done, what is the kind of depth of work you've done. So I would just try to write down everything, and I had this one sheet. So the next time I walked in for my annual appraisal, I started from April. Okay, this is
Hmm.
all the things that I have done, and now you tell me why I don't deserve, because I think this is what I deserve. So I think the confidence also changed. So that was one thing I want to share as well, that baby steps in terms of speaking up happen only when you're prepared. You have to prepare, basically. You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
uh, think that someone else is going to do, they will know. I
That
think that's
job for
another
you.
mindset which I used to have, कि अच्छा काम करोगे तो दिखता है, सबको पता है,
Yeah.
ऐसा कुछ
Yeah.
नहीं, आपको
Rather,
बताना
for a
पड़ेगा.
long time, they're very good point,
Then
and
I
I
think I just bring
this
this up.
up.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I will, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, sorry. I was unmuted on the other one. So, one of the things which I also have got as feedback in the past has been that, I don't brand the work that I do. We don't, usually women don't talk about it as much. It was
Yes.
a feedback for me for a long time. In my appraisals, my managers would say, you do so many things. I don't think people know that these are things you've done. So that's a very good point, Neha, which you bring, that, sometimes women kind of underplay, some of the things that we do. Yeah.
I think it's a cultural thing now. We do so many things at home also, but nobody's ever patted us on our back and said, "Hey, wow, today you did this for us." And men, they do one thing and they will talk about it like to
Yeah.
every every guy who walks in, that देखो पता है
I
आज
fed
मैंने
the baby. It will be
आज
like.
मैंने इतना अच्छा chicken बनाया. It's an announcement. It's everybody's intro. So I think that's the way practice just works its way somehow
Yeah.
sneakily into our careers as well, where we believe that,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's a full shift. Cool.
Mm,
So, Manisha, we are going to talk a little bit about the partnership, the scholarship that we've started
mm,
working with Impactis on, and the reason for
mm,
Womanista to, start working with Impactis on this was that while we focus so
mm,
much on investing, growing wealth, financial independence, um, we also wanted to start talking about mindful giving, a way of
mm,
being smart, not just in how you
mm,
are growing, but also in helping others grow with whatever resources you can park towards their journey. And what I loved
mm,
about their mission was that they were stepping in at a time where I feel it's a very make or break time for a lot of young women.
mm,
Um, So a lot of people I know support, their house help. They will educate their kids in primary school, secondary school, etc. But nobody really tracks what happened, right? Like where, and that's also something which we kind of let go. That ठीक है हमने अच्छा किया, or the universe will take care of it. What I love is that they're stepping in one. It's they're stepping in STEM, which itself requires more women to come in. And secondly, they're working with women who've already done, young girls who've already done the hard work. They've studied and got themselves into the best of best places in our country, the best of best colleges. And I think they deserve more than anyone else the support that they can get to move forward. So I wanted to, that was the biggest reason why we started working together on this, at the beginning of this year. So I'd love to have Shrestha share with everyone how they can, everyone here can have a look at what we're doing, what is the scholarship we're supporting. And I'm sure Manisha would agree that this is an area where a lot more needs to be done for women.
Absolutely.
So,
Once Shrestha's done, I'll also just, bring in some um, real incidents. Okay. So, you know, just talking about the merit of something like that. Shrestha, go on, please.
yeah, sure. I'll come back on that. So Manisha, as we said, like so many things we were talking, and everywhere there was an element of trust. I mean, when you invested in uh, home health as well, you trusted a set of people to leave something behind and do something else, right? So there is a trust involved, and we work with people. So I mean in HR, you would know the best that we work with people, and there is so much the factor of believing in people and their potential. And the partnership with the minister and Impactis was also based on that, that we believed in the potential of these young girls, and we thought that we should encourage them to be part of this scholarship so that they can easily get to their dreams. I mean, this is a scholarship which is for IIT and NIT admits, uh, girl admits who have gotten into IIT and NIT. And this is a fully funded scholarship, and not only funds, but we also support them with counseling service, guidance, all through the 4 years, so that after the 4 years they can land, with either a high-paying job or their dream job, as you said, Mariko, was your dream job, or if someone wants to be an entrepreneur, so they don't have that financial debt, and they have all the exposure that they might have missed out in their life, as they all come from very, very vulnerable backgrounds, and they can move ahead. And the entire scholarship is run through a foundation called You Dreamers Foundation, and all the contributions get tax benefits. As we know, we are in the sphere of financially being financially sound and independent, so we also talk about that. And yes, we encourage everyone to either contribute or reach us to people who are interested in investing in such a scholarship. And of course, I'll come back to you, Manisha, to share your, in incidents and your, as you were sharing that on this merit. And also, I would like to know that what interested you to be, a part of this, and why do you like this scholarship, basically?
Yeah. So, the same thing that I was talking about, so one, it's very relevant. Okay, so women in STEM, of course, it's growing in terms of percentage, but still it is, not the kind of, if women are 50% of the population, women in STEM is way, way lower in terms of a number, right? So, so one is that. Second, the kind of investment that a family makes still, especially underprivileged background, people from underprivileged background, the kind of investments they make on a girl child and a boy child are still two different things. Okay, so really having something which is that kind of focus is required. And so this is really and especially this is all about merit, right? So this is about
Right.
a child who is a potential NIT IIT student. So I think, I mean, it is, I'm so completely sold, Shrestha, on this. Okay, so I think it's really fabulous. And I will just I also want to just talk about one thing. So one is the scholarship, which is the fee. And something that I really like about the program is the mentoring and the guidance that the program offers to these students. Okay, and I was just talking about that, when I said I'll talk about some examples. We have seen when we've gone to hire people, from even from smaller towns where, they themselves have social stigma in terms of joining sales, for example, or, things like that, where they've not had any coaches or anyone to mentor them and help them, understand what kind of career opportunities are there. How can they themselves maximize their potential, because all of, and especially these students with high potential, I'm sure they're going to benefit. Yeah, so long answer for a short question. Yeah, you're on
Thank you
mute.
so much. I think when a lot of people when talks about this scholarship, we get more confidence in it. That we are working on the right direction, and then you also influence so many of us here with your hard work and with your contribution. Yes, Neha. Uh, Back to you.
Thank you so much, Manisha. I'm just going to uh, urge everybody in the room, please talk about this scholarship to as many women you know around you who are already very keenly contributing. I know a lot of women are very active in the giving space. And they are very happy to put the money aside, especially when it comes to supporting a cause like education. We all know as women that education can really be not just a change in our life, but it's an intergenerational shift for families, which can happen just with one educated family member. So I would just request everybody, the link has been shared. Think of this just like any other contribution that you would do to someone who is helping you in the house, but maybe you're not given it that much thought. Look at this as your mindful giving activity. You can start it as low as you want, 500 rupees, or you can build this up like a monthly giving system where you're giving every month some contribution towards this lady. And right now we're working on scholar. We intend to keep growing a batch of scholars as we keep getting better and better response. Please go and do your due diligence on Impactis, on Womanista, on You Dreamers Foundation. You'll see that a lot of students from the Super 30s make it through the Youth Dreamers Foundation to get such scholarships. So from our side, we are doing our best to spread the word, to get as many people to contribute to this cause. And not just because it's a good thing to do, I think it's an important thing to do for women to show that support for women, because no one else is going to do it for us, right? I think that's what I want to leave with. Thank you so much, Manisha. It was a delight to have a conversation with you. I'm taking away so many points. Like if I don't have something to give, it's okay to go and ask. I will learn to network. I will not, let those that little person in my head who says, "Oh, are you sure you're good enough? Are you sure you will not be snubbed?" come in the way, and go ahead and do what I need to do, and I will keep finding a way. I think that's one thing I took away from the chat that we had, that you were determined. You kept finding a way with different situations. Opening the floor. Yeah, please. So we have a question by Pragati. Please,
Mm-hmm.
Pragati, you can unmute and ask.
Hi Neha. First of all, my heartfelt thanks to you for bringing such sessions, Neha. It is really very, very useful, and I was looking forward for these kind of sessions for a very long time. Okay, I
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciate your idea. And this question is about networking. So I just want to share my, effort towards networking. So I would say, during my, no, 10th tenure as a banking professional. See, no, networking to both men and women. No, I felt like this friendly and informal networking worked very well than a formal networking. See, I am a person who is like very private, and I had this kind of a thought that in a professional space, everything has to be moved very formally. So when there is an interest about certain subjects, and when I actually find professionals at a higher level who had that same kind of an interest, I really used to pick up all this industry dynamics about the subjects, all these charts and all these things and all, and I moved to them. Okay, so during this course I would find women professionals who are like look busy, do nothing kind of a people who take that informal, friendly approach, talking about Netflix series, all those things, and somehow they win that battle. No, it is really very shocking to know that even women, no, due to all these unconscious bias, in the process of networking, the preference is given to an informal and friendly approach towards networking. So, how do I correct myself?
Mm, yeah, should I
Yeah, it is
respond?
yours only.
Okay,
You're the
okay, okay.
networking queen. I'm going to
Okay.
come in second.
Okay, it's a very good question.
It's a very
Okay,
good question.
yeah. So, rather very recently, I mean, for Women's Day, we were having this conversation where which I was facilitating around networking. It was for another organization. So, see, Pragati, there is nothing wrong in having informal conversations also. Rather, this was a conversation I was having with men and women, and there was a similar question where the person asked, should it be formal? Should it be casual? So I always say networking in office is semi-formal.
Okay.
It is not fully formal, it's not fully casual, it's in between. Okay. Because you are in a formal setup, but if you want to network, you're basically building a trusting relationship. Okay, it need not be a long term relationship. Very, very careful. Okay, so that is also one reason why a lot of times women don't network, because they think of any networking thing as a long term. It need not be long term, it can be only purpose driven. That's fine. Okay, so Pragati, to answer that, it is okay to talk Netflix, it is okay to talk, sometimes it's okay to talk cricket.
Okay.
A lot of times people network on some of these hobbies, and sometimes you don't know, that's not your subject, so you don't have to learn about it. You just need to know you have to know to ask the right questions. That's it. No need to know, like for example, if people talk about FIFA, I was not following FIFA so much, the World Cup football that happened. I was not following so much, but if they were networking and talking about it, I would ask the right question. Acha, what is the next one? Show interest, be a part of that conversation.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so just two, three things. So one, it is semi-formal. Second, you don't need to know the subject to join a group to speak to them. You can, just join, learn what they're talking, ask the right questions, seem interested. So yeah, is that okay, Pragati?
Yeah, it made absolute sense actually, because I had this kind of a very strong belief that all these kind of things, that in a formal setup, like this is how we are supposed to move.
Yeah.
So when I came out of college and when I get to see all these happenings, something which is just the opposite of what I learned, it was slightly
Mhm.
heartbreak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, just join it. Just join the gang.
Ah,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want to just add one thing, Pragati, that I have realized that the word is networking, but actually, without realizing, women are anyway networking. Why? I'll tell you. Because networking is nothing but building a relationship. That's it. Like it's a human connection that you build. And we are naturally, in many ways, already learned to build these relationships through our friendships, through our family relationships. The only thing is that when we come to work, suddenly we become guarded. We are not sure of many things, what to say, what is appropriate, inappropriate. I have often found that it's the best approach is to be authentic. One, be yourself, ask some smart questions at the same time. Feel free to crack a joke, laugh, say some things which might make the environment a little easier. People love to connect with people who it's easy to connect with. We're not robots. We like to talk to people. So be yourself. And the second thing which I feel personally is that I've also realized that sometimes I'm just not networking with the right kind of people. I mean, I believe that not everybody needs to be a part of my network. I don't want to fit in very. There are some people with whom you don't want to. You realize that they're just not going to ever be the right people that you want to have a network with.
Yeah,
And that's
laughing,
also okay.
laughing out loud for jokes which are actually not a joke. That is the most difficult thing,
Don't do that. I'm saying be authentic.
Okay.
That is very important. Be who you are. At least that's what I feel. So I'm sharing my. Manisha is the expert. I'm not.
No, even not,
That's what
I'm
I
not
feel.
the expert, but yeah, makes sense. Be authentic, and like I said, and I always say this. A lot of times we hesitate joining a group of people who are senior, even if it's like a office party.
They are nicer
You know,
actually if you go and talk to them. I have often
yeah,
found.
they are nicer, and I don't. I mean, everyone. Yeah, it's nice, but like I said, sometimes you don't feel confident. Just fake it. Feel confident and go for it. So, sometimes I'm just coming from the point that, while, sometimes, you, of course, it's best to be authentic and best. But sometimes if you're not there yet, just
Fake
go
it till
and,
you make it.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
it's
Ask
okay.
one question and then let them answer. They will be very happy to answer.
Yeah,
There
just go in with,
were
yeah, sorry.
there were like 2 3 instances like this, and it really disturbed me. And I did connect with my internal HR professional, and what she said was, Pragati, it is not the achievement, it is not the effort. At the end of the conversation, that person should like you, and why that person likes you or dislikes you, even he or she will not know. So just don't break your head, is what that she said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a very good advice, especially the last one. Yeah, the
It
very
is,
good
yeah,
one.
very
Yeah.
true. Like I said, now sometimes you will realize even with your best efforts, your best, whatever your authentic self, the questions you ask, the research you do, you'll just realize that the person in front of you is just, there's that compatibility or that likability is just not happening. So I personally felt that it's okay. Not everybody will like you, and not you will like everybody, and that's also fine. Like I like one thing which Manisha said very right. She said, "Jo kaam nikala hai, what you need, you find the right person to do that job. If one is not fitting that bill, someone else in the organization will. So just find that person, and you will find that connection somewhere or the other. If there are 3 or 4 failed connections, there will be 4 or 5 good connections. Will be like you, who will get you. That's also okay. Just move on. इतना सोचना ही नहीं है.
Thanks a lot, Manisha and Neha.
Don't take so much stress. Not everybody has to.
Thanks for the question, Prakati.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Any other questions, ladies? Inspired by Pragati's question?
No, I don't think there is any in the chat. Uh, no more questions. I think all got answered in this entire session. Everyone could relate to everything and all got answered. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I think we are over time as well. So yes, over to Neha for the pleasure.
Thank you so much. So, finally, I will close this session by saying thank you so much, Manisha, for sharing everything so candidly, right from your personal way of approaching things. I said I talked about a few things which I've made notes of, my mental barriers, the networking piece I don't need to give, and make sure that I'm, reaching out and getting what I need to. And also, I love the fact that you openly shared about some barriers, how you overcame all of them, how important they all are for us. So, thanks for sharing everything. And the big, shout out to everybody who's joined the session. We have shared the link of the Impactis page. Please do go and have a look. at how we are building and going about this scholarship together. And our job is not done yet. We have so many more women's lives to touch, and so many more women who we want to learn from and speak to. So we'll come back again for another episode next month. Stay tuned, and thank you so much, everyone, for coming in. Thanks, Manisha, again for being so
Thank you,
candid.
everyone. Yeah.
And thank you, Shrestha, for moderating this perfectly as always. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
See you. Bye.